What's up, you guys? Welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing something a little different. I wanted to make it a little bit more fun and interesting. So today I'm going to be talking about a very tragic incident that people are making into a whole conspiracy theory. And a lot of you may already know about it and some might not. So I'm going to be talking about flight MH370 that disappeared back in 2014. So if that sounds interesting, please keep watching. I'm really cold, so I'm gonna put on my robe and get started. By the way, I'm not really gonna be talking about what products I'm using today. I'm just gonna be talking about what happened and then doing my makeup, but I will be listing everything that I'm using down in the description box. So if you're curious, it will be down there. So this starts out in 2014 on March 7th in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. There were over 239 people originally getting ready to board this flight to Beijing, China. In some articles, it said that it had rained that day, so it was a little hazy. Some of them didn't, but I don't really know if that matters because overall, later that night, it ended up clearing up and being perfect for the flight. So by the time it was 8 p.m., many of the passengers were already at the airport waiting for their flight that was supposed to depart the Kuala Lumpur International Airport at 12:35 a.m. on March 8th. By the time midnight came around, everyone started to board the plane. It also said, this kind of goes to what I'm going to talk about later, but it actually said that 38 of the passengers were from Malaysia and the rest of the passengers, over 200 passengers, were from around 12 other countries. The pilot named Zahari Ahmed Shah was a 53-year-old pilot that had actually been a main pilot for over 20 years, but in the actual aviation industry for over 30 years. He was known as a very well-trusting man, very, very smart, who actually created his own flight simulator at home on his computer. That way he could practice certain courses and actually create different routes, which isn't uncommon. A lot of pilots actually have their own flight simulator at home. It was just pointed out that he had made his own. Now, Shah was partnered with a 27-year-old co-pilot named Farik Hamid. And although he was really skilled, he was still less experienced than Shah. And it was also noted that they never really requested to be on any of the flights together. Like, they were rarely even put together, but they were put on this flight together. So there were a total of 239 people that actually made it onto this plane. 227 of them were passengers, 10 of them were part of the flight crew, and 2 pilots. Now, even though that is a lot of people, the plane was actually not even completely full. It had said that a lot of people that originally booked this flight didn't end up making it on the plane, for whatever reason. And at that point, it was probably really, really frustrating missing your flight, but I guarantee you after all of this incident happens, they were really thankful they didn't go on the plane. Also, I want to note this was such a routine flight that they actually had 59 of these flights a week going from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, China. By 12:41 a.m., the pilots had let the Malaysian airspace know that they were ready to take off. Everything was set to go, and they were getting ready to take off. Now, at this point, it's 12:41 a.m. A lot of the passengers are tired. They want to sleep. This is a red-eye flight. Like, a lot of them weren't going to want to eat or have a drink. A lot of them just wanted to relax. Because of it being so late and because of what happened, I just want to point out that this was probably like the perfect time for anyone to do this whole incident because of people wanting to sleep. That it was kind of like the perfect time to do it. Like, nobody was really paying attention where they were. It was dark out. It wasn't the middle of the day where people can see exactly what direction they're going. And especially if it was such a routine flight, I guarantee many of them have been on this flight before and would have definitely realized it if it was in the middle of the day. So everything had been going well, and about around 1:07 a.m., the transporter had sent an automated message back from the co-pilot saying that everything was good so far and they were heading northeast towards Vietnam. Then about 10 to 15 minutes later, around 1:19 a.m., the co-pilot sent another automated message to the Malaysia airspace saying that they were getting ready to go into the Vietnam airspace, and they were saying good night. We're not going to be in your radar anymore. We're heading towards Vietnam. So everything normal so far, but what everyone thought was a little weird was that Vietnam never received an automated message from Flight 370 confirming that they were in their airspace. And because of that, they actually had another pilot from a completely different aircraft try to contact them to see if they could confirm where they were at, but they didn't hear anything back. All they got was a mumbling sound. At this point, a military radar actually showed an unidentified, what they call a blip, or an unidentified plane heading westward and taking a hard left turn away from Vietnam. And because of this, the Vietnam airspace actually tried to contact the Malaysian airspace, letting them know what was going on, and they never received a response from them. Why, I don't know. And then around 1:28 a.m., Thailand airspace actually noticed an unidentified blip or unidentified plane in their radar, and they actually didn't do anything about this. Just let it go, apparently. Why? At 2:15 a.m., the Malaysian military radar showed an unidentified blip taking a southwestward turn towards Pulau Proc and the Strait off Malacca. And this is kind of where, like, they didn't really know exactly what it was. It just kind of showed like an unidentified thing in their radar and couldn't really tell what plane it was or if it was something else. So at this point, like, all of them were really, really confused and couldn't really confirm anything about it. So by the time 6:30 a.m. came, the people in Beijing, China that were getting ready to either pick up their loved ones or anybody that was getting ready to board that plane didn't see the plane land. And because of nobody knowing exactly what happened to the plane, it was only shown on the board that it was delayed. So everyone was really confused, but they really had no information. So as time passed, people were getting really frustrated that they weren't getting any answers on what happened to the plane and why it never landed, where their family and friends were. And it actually said in the articles I read and the videos that I watched about this that a lot of the people in Malaysia never got any answers about what was going on. And that was because authorities didn't really know what was going on. They had no idea where this plane was. They had no information to give out. But because people were getting so frustrated, they were actually going on hunger strikes in the airport because they were demanding answers, but never really got any. In fact, the Chinese authorities were actually the first to come out about any of the information that they knew. And that kind of forced Malaysian authorities to come out with at least something. But the speculations that they came out with were really bizarre. So one of the speculations that they came out with was that they knew that the plane landed in a city of Nanning, I believe that's how you pronounce it, in China, and they were actually looking for the plane at the moment that he was talking about this. Another really weird speculation from a different Malaysian authority figure was that the people on the plane, like a lot of the passengers, weren't of the Asian descent, and they were actually most likely either hijacking the plane or something. He didn't really clarify, but he said that they were traveling with stolen passports and that they looked like a famous soccer player, Mario Balotelli, which I will post a picture if I can find a decent one of the passengers, and they don't look anything like the soccer player. I have no idea where he got the speculation at all. It didn't really make sense, but he ran with it for a while. And I do believe that was just because they didn't really have anything to go off of. This was just from guessing about what happened because they had nothing to really go off of. At this point, they were actually trying to get some real evidence that they could give out, they were going through all of the possible scenarios, and one of them was maybe something happened to the plane and they ran into, a major issue and had to have an emergency landing. So going through all of the runways near the area where the plane was originally heading towards, they had to eliminate all of the runways that weren't long enough. Because this plane being a Boeing 777, which is a fairly large plane, it needed to have a landing strip about 1,500 meters long in order to have a safe landing. Well, that kind of eliminated a lot of the runways just because of the fact that they weren't long enough. So it actually came out that a Canadian pilot had a gut feeling that he knew exactly where the plane could have landed if it did have an engine issue or they needed to do somewhat of an emergency landing for any reason. But it turned out that the area that he originally pointed out had already been searched and the waters were clear and they didn't really find anything. Okay, I'm going to pop some lashes on and I'll be right back just because it's going to be way too hard talking while doing that, so hold on. Okay, I'm back. So where was I? So it was really frustrating because after all of these weird speculations that the authorities had, they were already investigating, obviously, but it took them 11 days to get any information back. And it actually showed that with the information that they got, there were military radars that had the plane in their radar, but they're actually not required to say anything because it could compromise anything that they're doing, and they didn't want any information coming out. So they really didn't have to give any information out, and a lot of them didn't. So they were kind of stuck at that point. And not only that, is that the Andaman and Nicobar Islands radars were actually shut off that whole entire weekend because they didn't really think that they needed them, which makes sense, but I really didn't know that you could just shut off radars. I didn't know that was a thing, but I guess if you don't need them, that's a valid point. Because of the route that the plane ended up taking, this actually made it really, really difficult for them to get any information because they knew that instead of heading northeast towards Beijing where they were supposed to go, they ended up taking a hard left turn and then another hard left turn down into the South Indian Ocean. So they really needed to get all the information so they can find out if the plane had crashed or anything. But again, it took days for them to figure out all this information, and by then they weren't sure if it was too late. So they kind of felt like they were stuck with little information that they had until they had actually found an Inmarsat satellite about 36,000 kilometers up that had actually been recording that whole entire night that the Flight 370 had taken off. And what's crazy, which I didn't know this was even a thing, was that apparently Inmarsat satellites can actually detect what exact plane that they're in communication with based on the angles of the plane and the distance between Earth. Pretty much every plane has a unique handshake, and that satellite can detect what plane that's having a handshake with, which is absolutely crazy to me. But apparently that satellite had been in contact with Flight 370 and had a handshake with it, and it ended up proving that the plane was only in one of two lines. So it kind of helped them detect where the plane might have been. Because that was all of the information that they originally had, they didn't really have anything else to go off of besides, having some theories come out from experts. Many people were coming out with conspiracy theories. So I'm just gonna kind of give you the rundown on some of the theories that experts came up with. Some of them are really weird. One of them was a crazy theory written by a journalist that he or she believed that Shaw, the main pilot, had a secret lover, and he was leading the plane to his secret lover's boat, and he was going to jump out of the plane with a parachute and land on the boat and just leave the co-pilot in charge to either land the plane or crash it. How he or she got that scenario, I really don't know. But another scenario was from an Australian man that he believed he knew exactly where the plane had crashed. He actually spent quite a few years getting Google Earth photos and putting them all together, trying to, you know, print out this bigger picture. And apparently he was a mechanical engineer and was very, very confident that he knew where the plane was. He claimed that the plane had been shot down by many, many bullets in the middle of the ocean, and that was actually analyzed and pretty much proved baseless. Like, he had no evidence to prove why he thought this. Because of it taking years too, it's like, how would you even see where the plane landed, I guess? So that was out. Many people actually believe that there is a second Bermuda Triangle and that the plane had been sucked into the Bermuda Triangle and just disappeared. There are many conspiracy theories about that one. So one of the theories that experts came out with was that Shaw had actually hijacked his own plane and wanted to lead what they call like a suicide flight. With all of the evidence that they have, this is the reason why they have the speculation. So what's interesting is they actually started investigating Pilot Shaw's computer. And like I said earlier, he had his own flight simulator that he had built at his house. Well, you know, a lot of pilots have that, it's not a big deal, but what they found interesting was that almost all of the flights were pretty normal. They all had a safe landing, it was fairly normal. But one of them was very interesting and popped out to a lot of authorities that were investigating, because they actually found a route on his flight simulator that looked like the exact route that he had taken Flight 370 on. So, you know, Malaysian authorities stand by the fact that they believe Shaw was a very trusting man and he would never do this, especially after having so much experience and doing this for over 30 years. Like, why would he want to do this now? You know, which does make sense. But if you think about it, you really don't know anybody. They could have many secrets they're never telling you about. And, you know, anything can really happen. Like, you don't really know anybody. But they still stand by the fact that they could absolutely trust that he would not do something like this. But when they did see the route on the flight simulator, you know, they did say it did stand out to them. It was something very odd. See, the route was supposed to go leaving Kuala Lumpur, heading northeast pretty much the whole entire way, and going up to Beijing. But instead, it went, you know, it left Malaysia, and as soon as it hit Vietnam area, it ended up taking a hard left and took another left down south in the middle of the Indian Ocean. I don't know. It's really weird. A lot of people are saying that he wanted to commit a suicide flight and actually turned off all of the oxygen in the plane and slowly started suffocating all of the passengers until they were dead, and then just like flew the plane to its doom in the middle of the ocean. So I don't know what you guys think. You know, many people still are very, very confident that they went into the Bermuda Triangle. Who really knows what happened? Many of the articles showed that they found some part of the wreckage like the same year. They just never came out with it. I couldn't really find a specific date. Some said that they found part of the wreckage in 2015, but I did watch a video. It was on 60 Minutes Australia, and they actually went and saw part of the wreckage from what they believed to be from Flight 70. I don't remember what they said, if they knew what part of the plane it was or how they even figured out that it was from Flight 370. It was just said that it was from Flight 370. The 60 Minutes Australia actually came out with this video with the with the wreckage in the video in 2019. I believe it was like on the 5th year anniversary of when the flight actually disappeared. I'm gonna finish my makeup real fast. Hold on. Okay, everything is done now. I was almost finished with the story and I realized my makeup wasn't even done yet. So I really want to know what kind of stories really interest you, and if you guys liked this one. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Okay, I don't want any of you guys watching this video and not subscribing. If you like it, like, do it. Yeah, that was it. It was a really tragic incident, and I did read some articles saying that they ended up finding Flight 370. They didn't say where. I haven't confirmed any of those articles. I actually only saw it on one, so I'm not really sure if that's true. I only heard that they found one confirmed piece of the wreckage. Some people say that they found a bunch washing up on beaches throughout, you know, parts of the Indian Ocean, like everywhere. I really don't know, but I'm really hoping that some of the families get closure. I kept a lot of the names, besides the pilot and the co-pilot, I kept a lot of the names out because I do want to keep the family's privacy private, and I don't want to interfere with what they're feeling, you know, because they really haven't had closure. So I really just want to keep everything private too, just for their sake. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.